Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the APAC BFSI Finnovation Conclave. This is a two-day conclave, and today is a day one. And we have over 70 BFSI technology leaders discussing various aspects in the banking, financial service, as an insurance sector. So we had a very interesting inaugural in the morning today with the UP Finance Secretary, the GST and Enterprise Architecture Head, and the Reserve Bank of India Innovation Hub CTO, talking about the policy-wise roadmap in the financial sector. Then we had three interesting panel discussion, one on the future of banking by leading CIOs from the private banks and the PSU banks. We had one session specifically dedicated to the cooperative banks, and we just completed another session on insurance companies. So now we have a session on cryptocurrency and blockchain impact for the BFSI sector, and we have a very esoteric panel for this. It's my pleasure to introduce this panel. We have with us today Mr. Sharat Chandra. He is the Vice President Research and Strategy for EarthID. Welcome, Sharat.
Thanks, Rajesh. Pleasure being here.
We have with us Anirudh Rastogi. He is the founder and managing partner of Ikigai Law. I think Anirudh just got disconnected, so he's connecting again. We have with us Kapil Jain. He's a co-founder and chief business officer of Cryptomintr. Welcome, Kapil.
Yes, thank you so much. Glad to be here.
We have with us Advocate Khushbu Jain. She is an advocate of the Supreme Court of India. Welcome, Khushbu.
Thank you.
And to moderate the discussion, we have Kanishk Gaur. He is the founder of India Future Foundation. So I'll hand it over to Kanishk, and Anirudh will be rejoining, and Prasanna Lohar from DCB Bank will be joining the discussion in between. So now I hand it over to you, Kanishk. The show is all yours.
Thank you, Rajneesh. Welcome everyone for this interesting panel on blockchain cryptocurrency, where we talk about the recent developments that are happening in India, looking at investments which have been made specifically within the metaverse, the change which is happening where decentralized finance is getting used today. So I welcome our fellow panelists, Kapil Jain, Khushbu Jain, Sharat Chandra. My first question is to you, Kapil. How do you see blockchain can be beneficial for financial services industry today in terms of improving transparency, adding security, and lowering the costs?
So we all are aware that, for quite some time now, blockchain technology is being explored by the banks and the BFSI sector as a whole. The blockchain potential in financial services is huge, and several applications which span across payments, capital market, trade services, securities, and commodities exchange. So when we talk about security, so this entire blockchain is based upon smart contracts. So when banks and financial institutes are using smart contracts to improve contractual term performance, as smart contract execute automatically once certain preset conditions have been met. So more importantly, if we understand, these smart contracts are firmly rooted in law and comply with any regulatory compliances across jurisdiction, the law of the land. Regarding transparency, the financial institution as such, rely a lot on regulatory reporting, and it is being monitored by central banks. So the real-time settlement, the kind of reduction of manual intervention, in sharing data, regulatory reporting, all these things make it very, very efficient. When we talk about, the instant settlement part, right? So a lot of middle office and back office work is being eliminated because these transactions are settled instantly. Moreover, since a lot of intermediaries are based upon, say it's a untrusty system, so there are no trusted parties involved into it. All these transactions are peer to peer. transactions, and that makes it very, very efficient in terms of capital optimization. Moreover, since these transactions are settled in a way wherein the counterparty is, cannot actually, affect the kind of settlement which is being done. So there is a reduction in error handling and reconciliation. So in a nutshell, this blockchain technology is here to stay. We can call it, say, a decentralized ledger or blockchain or cryptocurrencies, because one of the use cases is cryptocurrency. A lot of noise is around cryptocurrency, but the main core technology, blockchain technology, is here to stay, and banks and other financial institutes are using it. So these are my opening remarks.
Khushbu, you want to share your views? Khushbu?
Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
All right.
Please go ahead.
So, to start with, see, let me take you back when 2019. That interministerial committee proposed a report which said that there is an outright ban whereas cryptocurrencies in India is concerned, and they even proposed that 10-year jail term would be there even for holding a cryptocurrency. This to a participants of a nascent industry was was a shocking state. Now then came lot of, this proposal practically was not been acted upon till date, but then since then this industry, whereas regulation aspect is concerned, has grown, and also the aspect whereas growing of the industry has grown to a very large scale, that we keep seeing how this industry has developed not in India but globally. So both the sides, whereas right from outright ban to the cryptocurrency, and coming to today's state where we're talking about, okay, we're gonna put a taxation, whereas holding of currencies are concerned, you need to declare in your balance sheet what all cryptocurrencies you hold. So yes, that stage is still growing, still at the nascent stage. Regulation has to come up maybe in a manner that can flourish. That can there can be a limited source of regulation that can come in this industry, so that keeping in mind the growth of the industry, also keeping in mind the kind of instances that are happening for people who are new to the industry and they do not understand the way cheatings, the way different crimes are happening over the industry. So maybe combining all of these things, maybe not a strict but a limited interference or a regulation is something which we should expect, or which government should act upon. Over to you, Kanishk.
Thank you. Sharat, wanted to get your views on this subject.
Sure. So I would like to add to a couple of points made by Kapil, right? So as far as Indian banks are concerned, right? So I think last year, somewhere in July, close to 10 banks came together and formed something called IBBIC, Indian Banking Blockchain Infrastructure Company Limited, where all the leading banks, including SBI, they came together, and they are using Infosys Finacle blockchain to do letter of credit using blockchain, right? So mostly on trade finance side. And similarly, even IDRBT, the technology wing of RBI, they're also creating a blockchain platform for the banking needs. So I think a significant amount of progress is being made as far as banking industry is concerned. But again, the use cases have to be evolved beyond, let's say, trade finance. It has to come into payments, settlements. That's where stable coins have a bigger role to play. And payment giants like Visa and MasterCard, they're already experimenting with stable coins. So unless and until we have an enabling or pro-innovation framework, we might lose out to the stable coin momentum, or we might lose out our dominant position as far as digital payments is concerned. So I think that's where regulators might have to step in and maybe have a forward-looking view. Over to you.
Thank you. Anirudh, your views in terms of benefits for the financial industry, in terms of improving transparency through blockchain, or lowering cost, or improving security?
Sure, Kanishk. No, so certainly, I think there's no doubt that generally the financial sector seeks to benefit from many of the promised as attributes of blockchain technology. Where I think we remain kind of the challenges, of course, on the regulatory front need to be ironed out, and in particular because of the RBI's stance on the issue. and how the banking sector has generally been reluctant, right? And in fact, not only banking, but the extended kind of ecosystem of regulated RBI regulated entities has been very reluctant in kind of engaging with this ecosystem, right? And whether in terms of solutioning, providing solutions, or kind of just generally engaging with other stakeholders in the ecosystem. And I think that we need to solve for. So some of the examples that Sharat gave are, of course, promising examples of of the banking system kind of taking to this new technology, but that also is happening in certain limited ways, right? Where and generally any use of kind of private permissionless blockchain systems is still is still something where the banks are reluctant. So I think we need to solve for that.
Can I make one point to Anirudh's
Please go
comments?
ahead.
Right. What is also needed is maybe a clear framework for intermediaries, and let's say clear framework for custodians. So even if we are having a digital rupee in, let's say, in the coming years, right, what are the guidelines for custodians in that context? And can we evolve that further to include payment entities, payment gateways? Because that will eventually happen, right? I mean, we can't afford to lose sight of what's happening in the payment space, especially with respect to stable coins. And I think there are enough parallels in the US where you can license entities issuing stable coins as banks, for that matter. So if I can take that example further, then maybe payment banks can be authorized. I mean, if RBI is willing, they can take the mantle of issuing stable coins. And again, with the right, let's say, reserve in their escrow account, they can easily do that. And I think we also have some parallel in sense of prepaid instruments where these payment entities, they keep a balance in their escrow account and again start issuing prepaid instruments. That's my limited point.
Thank you, Sharat. My next question, again, I'm going to start with Anirudh. Anirudh, it's been said that blockchain is going to eat away into the pie of the banks as it comes in, because it is going to take away the middlemen. Do you see blockchain becoming a threat, or it's an opportunity for banks today, given the large volume and transactions through which transactions are happening in the digital system?
I think, Kanishk, the narrative that banks are going to lose out in the longer run on account of this new technology is an old one, right? And that was a concern that many banks and others in the ecosystem shared a couple of years back. But what has happened is that banks have, caught on, right? And in many ways found opportunities where they can remain relevant. So in fact, if you look at it, many banks are actually at the forefront of, kind of adopting this technology to provide solutions to other stakeholders. So I don't think that that's necessarily true. I think obviously there's a lot of things are going to be disrupted, and people who or businesses that will survive, including banks that will survive, will be those that kind of are able to adopt and adapt quickly to this, right? But as long as that's happening, I think banks are increasingly finding their relevance, in this.
Sure. Sharat, your views in terms of how it is going to change the dimension for banking?
So I think the banks will end up being disrupted either by the technology or by the fintechs themselves, right? So again, the only way they can, let's say, move ahead is kind of collaborating with fintechs and adopting technology, right? So this disintermediation and disruption is something which is quite imminent, and banks have to kind of live with that.
Okay. Kapil, your views?
Traditionally, the banks have been making money by the spread which they are having, right? So, for example, they accept deposit at say 6%, they give out loan at around 7%. The 1% margin is what they are making. But lot of money which bank makes is out of non banking charges, like ATM charges, or some kind of overdraft facilities cost, and the transfer fees, which are inefficient. So according to me, as rightly mentioned by Anirudh and Sharad, these things are going to get evolved if bank want to participate in being more efficient, being cost effective, or else other fintech companies, for example, Ripple. In terms of international transfer, Ripple is doing a great job by trying to help bank to adopt, the mechanism wherein the fund transfer could be done, instantly. For example, when I was in the US, the amount of time which used to take to transfer money from, say, US to India was roughly 3 to 4 days. Moreover, the kind of transaction cost was around 10%. So that's inefficiency, right? So something need to be done. And I think with the advent of, say, blockchain technologies and fintech companies and the companies which are based on blockchain, for example, Ripple, they are solving that issue in a bigger way. So coming back to the number of transaction versus the revenue which banks are making, there is a serious, kind of discussion which required to be done among the stakeholders to protect the interest of existing banking infrastructure. So that's my limited point.
Thanks. Khushbu, do you want to share your perspective with respect to change in banking? All right. I think since Khushbu is not there, let's just move ahead. I think the other aspects which we see is there's a lot of question on cybersecurity, especially when it comes to DeFi, when it comes to cryptocurrencies, and on securing blockchain-based technology. If you look at today, there are around list of 91 certain panel cybersecurity consultants and auditors which can audit web applications, Web 2.0 technology such as cloud. But when it comes to DeFi, blockchain, we don't have a list of empaneled consultants, and we don't even have a list of empaneled cybersecurity providers who can do this. So do you believe that there is a strong need today for government to come out with cybersecurity guidelines, which also helps identify players who could do this work? Sharat, do you want to go in first?
Right, and I think with the launch of digital currencies, again, these aspects need to be discussed in detail, and a wider consultation with all stakeholders is also needed. So the kind of risk associated with digital payments, right? So you might see a greater degree of risk with respect to custody of digital assets. So that's a different ballgame altogether. And as you rightly pointed out, there are not enough clear guidelines or clear precedences. How do you handle those type of frauds? So I think maybe a broader consultation with the industry is needed, and right framework is also needed, right?
Thank you. Kapil?
So, this entire technology is an emergent technology, right? And there are outstanding open points related to security, regulation, and scalability, which need to be addressed. So it may take 3 to 5 years to reach that maturity stage and become mainstream. So when we talk about guidelines, we talk about, say, various classification, because in toto, this crypto thing can be divided into multiple classified sectors. So the idea is to have proper guidelines, to have some kind of classification, and also we need to understand various regulation which need to be brought in. So there is a huge discussion right now going in the North Block, and also industry player like us are sitting with the stakeholders trying to make them understand about what type of guidelines they should bring in with respect to also cyber security. So to sum up, it will take another good amount of time to ensure that the cyber guidelines are maintained for such transactions.
Thanks, Khushbu. Yeah, you want to unmute yourself?
Hi. So, Kanishk, that's a very valid point that you have raised, that there is a need of, there has been rise of cybercrime and cybersecurity, whereas, when we talk about crypto world, because, the basic nature, that is decentralization of cryptocurrency, is an excellent opportunity for cyber criminals. They can hack into your cryptocurrency trading platform, which has recently happened. and steal funds, and because kind of state which we talk about cryptocurrency, the anonymity and everything, it becomes difficult for the law enforcement to enter into it. So yes, it does possess the inherent issue of security, whereas cryptocurrencies are concerned. Now the ransomware incidents have usually been a common thread, but these cyber criminals hide their true identity when asking for ransom in digital currencies. So that also is an aspect which has to be looked into it. They can attack businesses, ask for ransom in digital currencies, which has been happening from past. Not that there has not been incident that they're not been caught, but majority of it goes under the carpet. So because of untraceability, no evidence that leaks to the perpetrators, cryptocurrencies is spreading across the world, and so is the security and the cyber threat along with it. Over to you, Kanishk.
Thanks, Khushbu. Anirudh, do we need
Yeah,
specific
I
guidelines?
kind of resonate. I kind of resonate what Sharat had to say here. I think definitely a framework will help, no doubt. But given the nature of this technology, and there are developments both in terms of technology and risks every day. I think our understanding of these risks is also kind of changing by the day. Therefore, it's important that any kind of framework is brought in with ample consultation with the industry, and there's a little bit of a light touch approach to regulation that is taken. If we come up with fairly rigid, regulation set of guidelines, or rules or regulations, they will soon be irrelevant or redundant. With the changing nature of the technology and the risks. So I think providing, ideally a self-regulatory approach to this, I think would work best. But if nothing else, at least ample industry consultation and a light touch approach.
Yeah, I
That
would like
brings us
to
to an
add,
interesting point. Yeah, Kapil, go ahead.
Ganesh, I would like to add what Anirudh and Sharat and Khushbu made the point. So in India, we do understand that financial literacy is an issue, right? There are claims wherein more than 1 crore people are buying and selling and trading cryptocurrencies. But there is a huge awareness in terms of internet usage. People know how to go to Facebook, or maybe how to use Google, how to use banking transaction. So all these cyber security guidelines which we are talking about are also to do with the internet, right? So we should not feel as if this is blockchain, something rocket science is there, and nobody will be able to understand. It is as simple as internet, right? So the usages are there, which are being controlled by various industry players, which are decentralized in nature. But overall literacy, or the cybersecurity, or the protection of the consumer, is similar to what we have been trying to do for almost 3 decades now in terms of internet cybersecurity. So there is nothing which is peculiar, which is different than what we have been facing, and coming out in a better manner to protect the interest of the stakeholders.
Thanks, Kapil. And I think Anirudh got a very interesting point, self-regulation. When it comes to DeFi, when it comes to blockchain, do you think self-regulatory mechanisms can work in India? We've seen something like this, where self-regulatory mechanisms were started in case of intermediary, and then government came out with intermediary guidelines. So, Khushbu, want to hear from you. Self-regulation, do you think that can work in blockchain, cryptocurrency, DeFi?
See, initially, I would say, as I was putting it, that initially maybe for some time it can work, but we have not seen working whether social media entities are concerned, whereas others are concerned, whereas self-regulation are concerned. Self-regulation is good for an industry to grow. Definitely, I agree with you. I'm in consonance with you on that. But at the same time, industry has to take a very strong, by itself, take a very strong view, so that government interference stops over there. So I am pro for self-regulation, but one has to see that how this industry come together and create a proper self-regulation for themselves, or maybe a self-regulated guideline which all of them abide with and go ahead with. but at the same time, they also have to look into the other industry. People who are coming may not be with the right conduct. There are coins which come in place which are not authentic. There is no authenticity about it, or there are people who are creating fake exchanges and things are happening around. So I mean, yes, I agree with you on self-regulation, but how strict you can implement and how it can go ahead that it doesn't go in contradiction with the existing norms, rules, regulations. And also when it comes to anti-money laundering, also when it comes to other crimes, as I was talking about ransomware attacks and other places where the DeFi thing doesn't come as an obstruction, whereas enforcement of law is concerned. So looking at all these things, if yes, industry can come up with a self-regulation, that's a very good move, because for an industry to flourish, that's how it can be. You cannot have a strict rules and regulations for these kind of industry to work, like be it blockchain, be it crypto, be it drone, or be it others. Over to you, Kanishk.
Very interesting conversation. And Sharat, what's your view? You think self-regulation can work in country like India? Sharat?
I'll be happy to go if we've lost her.
Yeah.
So,
Go ahead.
so I think, so to your question on whether self-regulation can work for India, I think the answer is yes, but it ultimately the question comes down to the design of an appropriate design for the kind of governance framework that you implement, right? So can it work for India? You will have to design it to work for India, keeping in mind the challenges of regulation and enforcement in India, right? So, for example, yes, I agree that maybe for certain more critical elements, like for instance, crypto advertising, right, or advertising in general today is something that is taken care of on a self-regulatory basis, right? But maybe there are certain elements which are considered a lot more sensitive and critical, where the government may not want to leave regulation to the industry by itself. But then there are approaches which you can adopt, where you find a middle ground between the regulator having complete jurisdiction and the industry, on one hand, and the industry kind of doing having complete self-regulatory control on the other, right? The middle ground could possibly be an approach called co-regulation, where the regulator prescribes broad principles that it wants to achieve or ensure, and then leaves it to the self-regulatory body to identify means and implement and then it is reviewed on a, say, annual or biannual basis, where you see whether the self-regulatory body is able to achieve those principles or not. This is just one example, but the larger point I'm trying to make is that you got to design your there's no one solution that is going to solve for all your problems. You have to obviously design the system, the self-regulatory framework or the regulatory framework, to kind of the unique challenges that India have.
Thanks, Anirudh. Kapil?
So when we talk about the regulation and the regulators, so in India we are aware that people are talking about cryptocurrencies and looking at RBI. When we say that okay, cryptocurrencies are asset class, people are looking at SEBI, right? But neither RBI or SEBI may want to be a regulator for cryptocurrencies, because the entire thing is evolving in a very big way. So we need to understand as an industry player that these self regulations are not only should be limited to KYC norms or anti-money laundering act, but rather we need to understand, can we regulate the blockchain technology as such, or just we are regulating the financial services or the kind of money exchanges which are being taking place. So in nutshell, we need to actually have a broader discussion in terms of what type of self-regulation are required to be done in the interest of the blockchain technology, number one, and also in the interest of decentralized finances, which can actually help in making our entire financial system more efficient and productive. Yeah. So this is a limited point which I wanted to make.
Sure. We've also seen that banks are getting cautious when it comes to cryptocurrencies in light of the decentralized nature of cryptocurrencies, and when it comes to doing KYC checks or doing EML checks, there's a lot of resistance from banks, right? right? And specifically, when you're trying to move your money, a lot of banks will get too many details from you. Do you think there could be a process to streamline that? And do you think a lack of a regulation or clear guidelines from Ministry of Finance uh, is one of the reasons for this? Anirudh?
Yeah, I think the answer to this is, I mean, there are probably multiple things at play, right? Which lead to this sort of reluctance amongst the banks and other financial service providers to service the crypto industry. One is, of course, flowing directly from the top. That the fact that the RBI has not laid out clear guidance, has not really articulated anything in official documents as to what it expects from banks, to how it expects the banks to undertake KYC, etc. And in the absence of which, when everyone knows the RBI's otherwise stance towards cryptos is quite adverse and negative, obviously banks want to be extremely cautious, right? So that's one part of it. The second is, I think some part of the blame goes to the banks also, which is that banks generally, if are typically used to relying on these very detailed guidance or guidelines, whether internal or external, for how they conduct various processes, right? How they onboard a new client, how they do KYC, how they identify and report suspicious transactions, right? Now, here's an entirely new industry that is technologically complex, that is evolving, that is high risk, on which the regulator is not given any clarity. And then there's absence of these internal guidance, guidelines, etc., which the banks themselves have not created, right? Reasons are multiple. One, that it is hard work. Somebody needs to put in the hard work to create this understanding. Needs to work in tandem with the industry to understand the risks, to understand the solutions, etc. So banks have just not done that, right, over these many years. I think to solve for this and to solve for it is important, right? One, because this is an important industry. Even banks realize that there is a fair amount of values to be created by servicing this industry. So the banks are interested at the top level, right? It's just that at the back end, your compliance team is never able to clear these transactions or is to clear these onboarding processes, etc. So how do we solve for it? One, I mean, I think partly the regulator needs to step up. It has to realize that you cannot let an entire industry of the scale and magnitude and importance to be left unbanked, right? Which means that you have to start putting out certain kind of guidance and clarity, etc. Second, that the banks need to start working with the industry to find solutions to their many concerns. And it is happening in some ways. Like I'll give you an example. Crypto exchanges, for example, have severally, over the years, figured ways to give more comfort to the banks, right? For instance, there are examples of exchanges that have stopped withdrawals of cryptos, right? They only allow their users to convert the crypto into INR and then withdraw it, for example, right? This is one way in which banks get some greater comfort, right? That ultimately, the crypto cannot be withdrawn from the platform and then taken offshore or taken to another platform. It is only going to come back, go back to the user via INR, which is obviously a regulated channel. Now, so these are the kind of ways in which the industry has been working with the banks to give the banks more comfort. But I don't think that is an elegant solution, right? I think we need to, we shouldn't be in a place where exchanges and other industry players are finding bespoke solutions for themselves. Rather, the banks should have a solution for the entire industry, right? And that kind of work needs to be put in.
Kapil, Sharat, your thoughts?
Right. So I agree with most of the points made by Anirudh. So I think that's where maybe a collaborative approach is definitely needed. And as Anirudh pointed out, the regulators, they need to step up, right, and step in to kind of remove or weed out any uncertainty with respect to enforcing regulation, right? So be it enforcing 1% TDS tax, which again is a different ballgame altogether, right? So more engagement is definitely needed. And unless and until the banks, what banks can definitely do is, and again, Prasanna, since he's back, he can chime in and help me. What banks can do is they can maybe take the best practices, how they're enforcing compliance, right, and again then fine-tune them in the context of crypto and digital assets. So that is what is needed, and both banks as well as regulators need to come forward and take that leap of faith. Then only the industry will grow.
Thanks. Kapil?
Yeah, so we need to understand one thing, this entire question about, regulations and, this banks taking blockchain and cryptocurrencies as one unit. So we need to make bank understand what is the utility of this technology or the cryptocurrencies in immediate term and also in long term, right? So nobody is arguing that, blockchain technology is not here. When we talk about this cryptocurrency profit making is just one of the use cases of blockchain technology. So NFTs are the use cases of cryptocurrencies, right? So there are many use cases which are evolving with the time, and the bank should understand, and people from in the industry like us need to actually evangelize the banking system about the various benefits which banking system will get from the entire technology. We talk about Algorand, wherein the gas fee is being eliminated, right? We understand, the number of transaction per second can be increased to a substantial level, which is not being done at present moment by various payment gateways or maybe visas or MasterCards of the world. So the entire technology should not be questioned, and it should be more collaborative, as rightly mentioned by Sharat and Anirudh. And we need to have more adoption of the technology and all these things, wherein the cryptocurrencies and all these things are just the building blocks wherein it is going to actually evolve the entire ecosystem where the blockchain will survive in long term.
I would like to add one more point to Kapil's comments. Is that companies like TCS, they're already offering crypto custody services for their overseas customers or banks for that matter, right? So, and since TCS is already engaged in a couple of banking projects as well, so I think in some way you already have some solutions which can be fine-tuned in the Indian context as far as Indian laws are concerned. But again, the push has to come from the regulator itself, and the blessing has to come from the regulator. Then only these things can be moved forward.
Sure, thanks. I think Prasanna has joined us. Prasanna is the Chief Innovation Officer for DCB Bank. Welcome, Prasanna. Wanted to get your points on this discussion, specifically with respect to the high level of volatility which is there when it comes to blockchain or cryptocurrencies, specifically from banks. Do you think this is some kind of fear that banking systems still require more guidelines to be there, or it's because of past frauds, that have happened?
Can you repeat the context, right? I'm still not able to get what the question all about.
Yeah, so the context that we were discussing is that there is high level of volatility, specifically when it comes to AML and KYC checks, which need to be done for crypto transactions. When it comes to moving your money from your bank to a crypto wallet or pulling your money out. And a lot of time customers face this issue from banks, and there are too much amount of verifications which happen, right? Do you believe this is because of lack of regulation in India in this space, or it's just that because in the past there have been many frauds that have happened?
No, I think, we need to understand how banking works, right? It's not easy for anybody to really understand within a couple of... I myself took a lot of years how it really happens, right? Now, coming back, what is happening in crypto industry or crypto exchanges, and there is no rules and regulation around how to do KYC, right? There are some experts within crypto, they may say this is how it should be done, they may say this is how it should be done. And there is no window also for a customer to go and ask me, my money has vanished, what should I do? And there are so many other things. Now, coming back to the bank, how they work, right? So there is a lot of regulations which are governed by RBI regulators, as well as there are many standards like PCI DSS, ISMS, ISO, which keeps on governing every transaction, every pie which is sitting in a bank. Or how do we onboard customers with a proper KYC, AML, right? And as well as how do we serve or how do we engage customers? There are norms every process is documented at a bank level. If you ask any crypto company, how is it really documented? I'm not sure there are any standards because I'm not into that game, right, as of now. And while I have heard about our friends, right, so I think rather crypto exchanges should learn from banks how it really happens or how overall sanctity of a data, right, taking care of every transaction money, having insurance for every money, right? So there are a lot of things to be taken care at a crypto level. While this is just a beginning. For a technology per se, we always talk about crypto, blockchain. Blockchain is super safe. There are a lot many use cases which are built on crypto or NFTs which are beneficial for banks. So NFT is not only for crypto or something. There are use cases which are relevant to banking ecosystem also. And some of the banks are already working on that. It's not like that they are not working. And if you look at the banks or adoption of a blockchain in the banking, so blockchain is not a disruptive technology like Android or iOS. People will start immediately utilizing, right? It's a foundational technology. It will take some time to create those foundations, right? So we have invested so much of money on IMPS, UPI, and it will take some time, right? So there are efforts are happening. I think one of those use case we talk about a digital rupee, which will go live, will be built on blockchain for sure, or a decentralized KYC, wherein MITI is working with some banks and some of the IDRBT, CDAC, right? There are many more other such use cases. Many banks are working. I think there is a department, fintech department at RBI Innovation Hub. They have already started working on how do we have LCPG kind of a use cases. Cross-border payments, some of the banks already implemented. So going forward, it's a foundation technology. Don't expect everything will happen in a couple of years, right? For example, UPI took 4 years for real adoption, which is built on existing ecosystem, existing railroads. So it will take some time, and but the time taken at internet level of ecosystem, right? Say example, ARPANET, TCP/IP took 40, 45 years for adoption of internet. Blockchain is taking hardly 5, 6 years, right? Since your GOTS protocol came in 2009, and now we are expecting everything should happen on blockchain. It will take its own time, and the way innovations are happening in the ecosystem, crypto, DeFi, NFTs, I think for sure this will enforce or accelerate movement everywhere. So we are blessed with that movement. But how do we do that, right? For a longer term, that is why regulations are required, or I can say regulations are required to take care of the technology, take care of the innovations from blockchain and crypto kind of things, rather banning and all. So regulation doesn't happen overnight, right? So there is a, if you see last couple of years, lot many things are coming up from government of India, RBI, and so on. And if you study thoroughly each and every thing, right? So I think the way we have announced budget, the way we have announced digital rupees coming in, right? I think the way we do digitalization at India level, I think for sure we will have a better journey out with the blockchains and crypto. So with respect to how our other colleagues are speaking, but it will take some time, and this time we have to invest a lot of time on maturity of a technology itself, right? So why why are we saying that blockchain cannot handle thousands or more than Visa? It does handle, right? It's no, there is no rocket science all about that. As well as how are we taking care of our futuristic innovations with the quantum coming in picture? I think we need to give a challenge to the blockchain for quantum computing rather than current age or cloud. These problems are already solved, but at a quantum level, we yet to solve at a larger protocol level. I think that's how we need to look at it. But over a period of time, I think banking will be the first entity or sector who will adopt blockchain for sure, ahead of the gaming or many other areas where already entertainment is already happening, right? But it takes some time, and this time is invested for a better regulation, technology adoption, maturity, creating some standards which will help and safeguard. Yeah.
Thanks, Prasanna. We'll move on. My next question is, how can banks get involved in cryptocurrency industry when it comes to, you know, custody services, smoother onboarding, expert assistance, administration of KYC, security concerns, leverage aspects such as smart contracts, and enable digital payments? Do you think there are more steps? We've seen banks like Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs get better prepared when it comes to handling DeFi specifically, right? and enabling a different customer experience, which involves creating a more, their own metaverse. Do you think something like this is a real possibility in India as we move forward? Kapil, I want to start with you.
See, as we speak today, only yesterday, the Deputy Governor of RBI is saying that we can have now an open discussion about cryptocurrencies. So we have a long way to go, right? We have Khushbu must be aware and Anirudh must be aware that Supreme Court actually intervened and tried to help out the industry by giving some kind of relief in terms of policy advocacy. But we need to understand that the things are evolving. It will take time. We need to separate a couple of things from from day trading to the actual use cases of blockchain technology. But yes, we need intermediaries to say cashing in the arbitration which cryptocurrencies are having. Any exchange cannot work in isolation. You have to have some kind of connection with the existing banking system, wherein these cryptocurrencies could be exchanged into fiat, and fiat could be exchanged into cryptocurrencies, and the actual use cases could be done. Just like Prasanna mentioned just now, blockchain is here to stay. Banking is going to take it forward more faster than entertainment and all of those things. But we need to understand, when you are saying that blockchain is good, cryptocurrencies are not good, it's like saying internet is good, the browser is not good, right? So we need to have, again, a meaningful open discussion with the Indian central bankers or the industry players in terms of how this entire thing is going to get evolved in a very faster manner, as rightly mentioned by the panelists, that the quick adoption is the key. We already had a railroad wherein UPI systems were inculcated in the entire existing system. We have this entire UADAI thing coming up and helping out, opening a bank account. Now it is something which is not new. Again, blockchain was there before Satoshi Nakamoto tried to had a use case with the Bitcoin or the cryptocurrencies in 2009. So we are talking about development of more than 2 decades of the blockchain decentralized technology, and the things are going to get evolved once these discussions are taking place. We are looking to countries like USA, maybe some European countries, Estonia. People are accepting cryptocurrencies for buying asset in Dubai. Ordering pizza, food delivery. All these things are good, very nice listening point of view. But we need to understand that there should be a concrete discussion on what kind of adoptions could be done by the central bankers, and in return we have to have a consensus among the stakeholders to evolve by using this technology for a better good of the society, right? It is not a threat. We need to educate or evangelize the entire system to various stakeholders and let them understand that the utilities of this blockchain technologies are here to stay. So slowly and gradually, by participative discussion, we can actually come to a stage wherein we will take it forward in a year or 2 year or a 5 year time, right?
Thanks. So Khushbu, you want to come in here?
I think much has already been said by Prasanna and Kapil over here, enlightening every part of it. So let me just add a little portion of what Prasanna was talking about and Kapilji was talking about. That adding to the part that yes, banks do need to, let crypto exchanges and others need to understand or maybe learn how KYC works, and maybe take benefit from that, and so that the seamless aspect comes over there. Now coming on the aspect, whereas Kapilji was talking about legislation and how it can talk about, I would say that legislation can be seen, we always see legislation in a very derogative way, but this can be seen as one of the ways to maybe effectively deal with the ill effects of cryptocurrencies. And now cryptocurrency regulation or legislation should mandate or may mandate the collection of customer information, sharing with other legitimate financial institutions, banks, for combating and minimizing the kind of ill effects that come along with it, including money laundering. On the other side, it should not be made so stringent that it stifles the innovation or maybe strangulate this nascent industry, which has the potential to revolutionize the way the global financing system will work or works. Now, the regulation of crypto should be done maybe with a very loose regulation, which permits which virtual currencies to develop, and can also have a regulated space which is easier for entrepreneurs, startups to implement and facilitate operations from anywhere in the world. It, which may enable the economic growth, protecting investors from liquidity issues, anywhere, while encouraging innovations. Now, what I see as a landscape, this landscape of criminal underworld, we see a lot of issues. Why we are so scared about crypto is the aspect that it has a potential of a larger potential of crime and involving finance of the world. So this landscape of criminal underworld is also changing along with cryptocurrencies. Therefore, it is very much important at the moment to work towards preventing these virtual assets from becoming a safe havens for illegal financial transactions. That's one of the paramount thing when you talk about KYC. And also, therefore, it is very much imperative for us and for government to safeguard and protect the citizen and the global economy from the abuse of cryptocurrencies and virtual assets, so that it becomes a level, it still goes and flourishes as an industry. Over to you, Kanishk.
Thanks, Khushbu. Anirudh?
Yeah, I think thanks Prasanna for bringing in a sense of realism, right, and kind of giving the bank's point of view to why some of these problems exist, right, and why it is taking time. I do think that one particular thing that Prasanna mentioned about sort of informally saying what's the hurry, right, because it's taken us years to adopt to many other technologies, and well, blockchain is still a kind of emerging new business industry, so to say. I think even banks and other financial services providers today realize that they don't want to lose out. They don't want to miss the bus, right? I mean, there is enough. This industry is exciting from just a revenue point of view, and clearly, when an industry is moving this rapidly, right? If banks are not able to keep pace, and banks, it is important for them to keep pace. Otherwise, there are huge issues in kind of conducting this business. So if banks don't keep pace, that's a problem for the entire industry, and that needs to be solved for, right? As I spoke before, and Sharat also alluded to this, that ultimately it's important that the only way to solve this is for the banks and the industry to be working together to find solutions that address the concerns that the banks have, right? And it can't be unilateral, because otherwise what is happening today is that and some of the examples that I gave earlier, that only few industry players, few exchanges that are large enough, that have enough volumes, are then able to work with select banking partners to find solutions that work only for them, right? But these are not solutions that apply to the entire industry, and that's holding the entire industry back, right? So I think instead of having these bespoke solutions, it's important for the industry, larger industry, and the larger kind of banking industry to work together, find solutions, whether it's KYC on onboarding, reporting suspicious transactions, and find those solutions that can work across the board. So that's one maybe slight difference in approach I would like to push for.
Thank you. We've come to the end of the session. Any closing remarks from Khushbu, Kapil, Anirudh, or Prasanna? Anirudh?
No, I don't have anything more to add. I mean, I just want to conclude on a positive note that hopefully this is the banking troubles for the industry is something that we can solve for eventually, and sooner than later. I think that's really the only thing.
Great, thank you. Kapil, anything from you?
Yeah, so I'm of the view that the blockchain is going to stay. The banking industry and entire BFSI is going to get benefited by it. The era is of collaboration. Either the bank develop their own blockchain kind of system, or participate or buy out some startup to help them out to participate in this entire thing. And we have to also encourage adoption of the processes or the things which could be done more effectively, efficiently, cost effectively, transparently by way of blockchain technology. This is going to benefit the stakeholders in the entire system. And in a nutshell, we are pro adoption of blockchain technology.
Thank you. Kapil?
Yeah, it was me actually.
Yeah, thank you. Anything from you, Khushbu?
No,
Prasanna? Anirudh, anything from you?
No, nothing
Great.
else.
Okay, I think with this we come towards the end of the session. Thank you so much, Kapil, Khushbu, Prasanna, and Anirudh for taking our time. I hand it back over to Rajneesh.
Yeah, thanks, Kanishk. And before we disperse, would like to just digitally hand over a token certificate to all of you. The physical part of it, our team will get in touch with you and take your address and send it across along with a small token of appreciation on our behalf. So
Perfect.
just,
Thank you.
I'll just hand over the digital certificate. So can we have the certificates now? Yes, so this is Kanishk. Gaur, congratulations, Kanishk. Can we have the next one? This is for
Thank you.
Prasanna. Congratulations, Prasanna. Prasanna, if it's possible to switch your camera on, I know you are traveling. Anyway, congratulations, Prasanna. Yeah, this is for Sharat Chandra. Sharat has also seemed to have logged out, so we will be sending his certificate. Can we have the next one? Yes, this is for Anirudh. Congratulations, Anirudh. Can we have the next one? Kapil Jain. Congratulations, Kapil.
Thank you.
Yes. For Khushbu. Congratulations, Khushbu. With that, we come to the end of day one of the BFSI Finnovation Conclave. Thanks to all the panelists. Wishing you all a good evening and inviting everyone, the whole audience, for day two tomorrow. I know Kanishk will be there to moderate the session in the morning. So, wishing all of you a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rajneesh. Thank you, Anirudh. And thank you, everyone.